I think we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 7 o'clock. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Oh, Mike, you look better. Still red, but we can see you at least. So I know everybody's starting to plan for the end of the school year, and summer break is right around the corner. So it's nice that everyone could come tonight. So I just want to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded. And tonight we have 2 people, maybe 3, from Ventura Police Department. Commander Brown, is Emily Ayala going to show up?
I don't believe so. She didn't tell me she was going to be here tonight. In fact, she gave me some stuff to talk about. It'll should be myself and then Judson Wolfinger, our motor officer.
Okay, well, at this point, I'm going to turn it over into your capable hands.
Okay, I'll be brief so I don't take any time away from Judson. I got a couple announcements that I'll get through after we talk about some of the crime stats. I'm happy to report this month we actually had 12 less incidents than last month. I did notice a little bit of a crime trend in the areas of Loyola, Laverne, Hunter, and Lafayette. So the neighborhoods just above Buena, and just below Buena, just west of Victoria. It looks like we had somebody over a course of a couple of days checking door handles and getting into unlocked vehicles. So I'd like to remind everybody to make sure don't keep any valuables in your cars. Please make sure they're locked. And if you happen to see any suspicious activity, please report it as soon as possible. This month we did have 3 weapons arrests. Most of those were actually proactive arrests from our law enforcement officers, and one of those was a child that brought a BB gun to one of our high schools, which ended up in a arrest. But the other 2 arrests were proactive arrests from our law enforcement officers. I'm happy to report. And other than that, there was no specific crime trends that I noticed in the area. I did want to talk about our community academy application is going to be enrolling applicants opening next week. I sent Kathy some PDFs that have some of this information on where you can sign up if you're interested in our community academy and learn a little bit more about our police department and how it works. Our internet safety workshop is tomorrow. And that talks about how online predators target children through apps and games, social media trends, and hidden features for parents that they may overlooked at times, local case studies on online exploitation, and emerging risks like AI and deepfakes in regards to our internets. And that is taking place tomorrow at the police department from 6:30 to 9:30 at our station if you're interested. And then lastly, June 3rd, we're going to unveil our mounted unit. We have officers that have been working very hard to train on horses, and they have been certified by the Post Commission. And I think this year at the fair, you may see our first officers on our own mounted unit. So that is coming soon to some of our local events. So if anyone has any questions, I'd ask just hold on to them real quick. I don't want to take away from Judson and give Judson an opportunity to talk about some traffic stuff for you.
So I'm going to go ahead and, oh, by the way, Nadine says the website looks great. Eric,
Thank you.
I'm going to paste the information that you sent to Kathy into the chat. So let's see. I have to edit it, but I'm going to edit it while Judson is speaking, and then I'll post it so people can access it there.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commander and Barbara. I was telling Barbara just a minute ago, this is like my first time on Zoom, so if I screw something up, please forgive me. I'm here basically to answer any questions that you guys might have regarding the traffic enforcement or traffic patterns in the area, and kind of what the traffic unit has been doing regarding complaints regarding speeding on Loma Vista, mainly along the college, but also all the way to Victoria. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know, and I can try my best to answer those. As for what the traffic unit's doing, trying to correct the driving behavior in the area, which speeding is one of the primary issues we face in throughout the entire city. But we've collected data in the area and showed that while it is a residential area with windy roads, we do have a sporadic pattern of speeding through that area, and it's difficult to enforce it just strictly because of the way the road is set up, cutting through the residential area from Day to Victoria. But we have been out there enforcing that using our lasers and kind of approaching the data that we've been collecting, time frames for which the speeding is occurring, and we're out there doing our best to enforce that throughout Telegraph and Loma Vista during those times.
Does
So if
anybody
anybody have
any
any questions or anything, please let me know.
For either Judson or I, we're happy to answer those.
I have a question about e-bikes on Loma Vista. Granted, the speed limit is 40 miles an hour, which I think is too high, but I was going 35 and I was passed on the right by an e-bike. That is incredibly fast. So I don't know if the traffic mitigation and traffic watch by VPD is including chasing the e-bike issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So e-bikes are becoming an issue throughout the entire city. And unfortunately, we are facing some issues with just laws catching up to it in the parks, but specifically on the roads as well. There are different types of e-bikes. Some of them are actually considered electric motorcycles, which cannot be on the road or on the sidewalk at all at any time. And I think that we have a flyer. I'm not sure when the last time it was sent out was, but it basically gives a description of the different types of bikes that we're seeing, the street legal ones and the off-road vehicles that are not legal to be on the street. As for speeding, it's something that while we're out there and if we see it, we can definitely enforce it. It's going to be something where we have to witness that and then conduct a traffic stop to actually to affect behavioral changes by issuing citations or offering education to those kids or young adults that are on the bikes. It's definitely something that I think education for the parents and guardians of these kids is going to be huge, because they're giving these teenagers and young adults bicycles that are capable of going 45 plus miles an hour, which is just completely unsafe, especially when you're cutting through busy areas like the college and the residences on Loma Vista. But we are out there looking for that. It's just a matter of seeing it and then being able to conduct traffic stops and affect their behavior.
And Kathy, to segue on that, we have information on our website on the different classifications, but just like Officer Judson said, absolutely, normal e-bikes are not capable of those speeds. These are for off-highway use that people are allowing their kids to either knowingly or unknowingly use on the city streets, and they're absolutely illegal and they can be impounded. And it is a problem that we're currently trying to mitigate.
Okay, because I was absolutely surprised to see this e-bike whiz by me, and I was going 35 miles an hour and it just zipped right past. And I thought, I didn't even think they could go that fast. So anyway, thanks.
Just a quick like easy recognition for some of these bikes is if you see electric, what you believe to be an electric bicycle, and there's no pedals on it, then it's 100% a motorcycle and cannot be on the roads. So that would be something where you can either, if you see it consistently at the same time every single day, you could let us know and we can make it a point to be out there at that time so that we can conduct traffic stops on these kids. Otherwise, if you see something like that, you can call us, and either the traffic unit will be able to respond or patrol units that are in the area.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, is there any other questions for Officer Welfringer?
Yes, is there any speed limit, you know, on the differentiation between, you know, a legal e-bike and one that's been souped up? Is there some kind of a regulation regarding some characteristic of those bikes that would make it illegal?
I would say that any time that they're on a road, like a highway, like Loma Vista, for example, or those sidewalks, they have to adhere by the speed limits that are posted, same as any other vehicle. As far as throughout like parks or bike paths or anything like that, until the bike paths are classified in a specific way, speed cannot be enforced in those areas because they're not highways and they're not classified as bikeways. So until that happens, our ability to enforce speed is very limited. But if they are on the like Loma Vista, for example, then they would have to adhere by whatever posted speed limit there is at that specific location that they're riding.
And also caveat on your question, nowadays with the e-bikes, there's 3 different classifications that they can operate in, and they're now user selectable where they can select the user mode that they want, because each classification is limited to a certain speed depending on where you're going to be. If a class 1 and class 2, they can be operated on bike paths, but class 3s cannot because they travel at a higher speed. But nowadays with the e-bikes, when they first came out, they were very hardwired in, but now they're selectable. So they can, on the fly, just adjust that.
Any other questions?
I have a question for Commander Brown. How I think mounted officers is really fun. I love horses. How was the budget process decided as that moved forward, and what are the costs for the city of mounted officers and the benefits of that versus on foot or on a bicycle?
So you won't see the mounted unit like on patrol like you would a bicycle, you know, or a vehicle. They're used for specific purposes. Oftentimes they're used for crowd control. I can tell you many years ago at the fair when we had Sublime and we had the riots starting, the horses saved my bacon. Very, very thankful for them. That's the big thing. They're mainly used also for public outreach and so forth. So the horses aren't owned by the city. The horses are actually owned by the officers themselves. And the officers themselves, this is considered a collateral duty. It's not a primary duty. So much like I'm on SWAT, and that's a part-time operation. The horses are not purchased by the city. The officers shoulder the cost of the feed and the care and the maintenance. Now they may be able to write that stuff off of their taxes, but they're still responsible for that cost. The only thing that the department actually pays for is maybe some of their uniform items and a saddle. The officers are responsible for transporting the horses to and from and so forth. So the department isn't really shouldering anything above and beyond what a normal collateral duty assignment would be. And there's no cost to the city as far as that care and maintenance. That's my understanding. Commander Caliento is actually in charge of the mounted unit, but I've been following it pretty closely, and that's my understanding of it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Right, I have done my best to edit down 1,700 words to 1,000 words, which is all that Zoom allows you to put online. So just forgive me. I've just posted it. Forgive me if you see errors, but I reduced it by a lot of words. Hopefully it still is clear what you are offering. So thank you all very much for being a part of our evening tonight. Really appreciate all the information. And you did a great job for your first time on Zoom, officer. So nice job.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so next up is Vanessa Stotler here. Kathy, do you see Vanessa? Or Eric, do you see Vanessa?
I do not.
Doesn't look like she's here.
I
at the
don't think
moment.
she's here yet.
Okay, I do want to thank Kathy. She has been, you know, she went on a trip and of course she came back sick, as so many of us do. So she's here tonight, not talking as much as she usually does, but we just appreciate her attendance. So thanks for coming, Kathy.
Oh, you're welcome.
So I'll just take a moment and kind of, since we have some time, I'll just update everyone on, so we, as you all remember, we, the general membership approved a letter written in support of CAPS. So I wrote the letter and sent it to the city. I got 2 really wonderful responses from council members, Jim Duran and Alex Mangoni. Jim Duran's response was very, very lengthy because he has worked closely with CAPS for many, many years, and is very much appreciative of the work that they do for our community. And Alex Mangoni, his was very short, but still very heartfelt. And as we all know, this CAPS organization is one of the major reasons we can interact at the level that we interact with our city government, through their live streaming of city council meetings, through the online videos that you can access later, and their tremendous contribution to nonprofits like CACC Ventura. We really appreciate what they have to offer. And I think that our letter, it is interesting to note how much our letters and our input impact the city. And so I want to thank all of you for voting for that, for being a part of that. I think it's really helpful when an organization that's so supportive is in jeopardy. And then I want to take a minute and talk about our high risk. So a lot of you know that the high risk fire maps are out. And so interestingly enough, most of the west side is in a high risk area. And what the fire department wants everyone to do is not to plant trees within 10 feet of a building. Well, if you plant a very small tree with a 20-foot canopy, that tree, the edge of that canopy, cannot be within that 10 feet. So that means, you know, 15 feet out. Well, many houses and certainly apartments don't have 15 feet. So people like Eric Berg, I know many of you know who he is. He is a landscape designer. He has been on the board of Midtown Community Council for quite a few years, and he is very concerned about this. I mean, no one wants anyone's house to burn down, but having done a ton of research, my husband's a firefighter, as most of you know. I'm one of the founders of the Ventura Tree Alliance. Only certain trees burn, and those are usually decrepit and dying trees. And yeah, it's a bad idea to have a limb hanging over your house. On the other hand, 15 feet out for a tree, I don't think anybody can do that. There's not anything we can do about it right now, except, you know, stay informed. I would not take out a tree that's in your front yard at this point, but that's my personal opinion. I don't represent College Area Community Council. I would move the limbs away from your home though. And the biggest thing is move that grass mat away from your front door. Try to have a metal gate that's attached to your house as opposed to a wooden gate. There is so much news out there on how to prepare for fires now, which when we lost our home, my husband's a firefighter and we knew what we knew, but we were I think we were like the 5th fire in the state of California that affected a significant number of houses. And there's a Marin County battalion chief who does a video on how to prepare if fire is imminent. And it's the first time I've ever seen that. So as many of you know, having been in Ventura during the Thomas fire, you could see the fire as it crested Clear Point. And so you're just stuck. You don't know that the electricity is going to go off in 30 minutes. You don't know how your neighbors are doing. You really don't know what to do. So if you want to look that up, I think it's called Marin. He's a Marin County battalion chief, and he tells you things like, pull your hose out so the firefighters can see where your hoses are. Don't lock your doors because they need to go in and make sure there's no invalid or dog stuck in the house because they want to let that out. So things like that, but close your windows and close your doors because you don't want the fire to come into your house. Just a lot of things like that. And we also encourage you to engage in your local FireWise community. They provide lots of very important information on how to keep our neighborhoods safe. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. So Logan, I want to introduce Logan Babcock, who is an environmental services specialist with the Public Works Sustainability Division, and she's going to talk about CARP, our Climate Action Plan. Logan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
Would you like me to share my screen and show a presentation?
sure.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna do that because I can talk. So it's helpful to have a visual reference, I think. But let me just pull this up and make sure everyone can see it before I get started. Oh my goodness. Okay. Let me see here. All my little controls got covered, of course. I want to say thanks for inviting me. This is my first community council meeting. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm excited to be exposed to the community councils. I think it's a great form of engagement that I definitely, yeah, I'm excited to explore. Let me figure out where the heck. I normally work not in this app, and it is. Let's see here.
I think if
I'm
you
just gonna
click
stay here.
slideshow,
Start
Slideshow.
slideshow.
Or slideshow. Oh my gosh, thanks everybody.
if you go
Okay,
from
great.
beginning there.
Perfect. Okay. Everybody can
There
see
you
this,
go.
I'm hoping. Wonderful.
That's
Anyways,
great.
I'm Logan. I'm on our sustainability division. We're housed within Public Works, but obviously sustainability touches a lot of different city operations. So I'm happy to answer any questions you guys may have about that. But I'm mainly here to talk about the Climate Action and Resiliency Plan. This was, well, a little more background. I have a master's in environmental science and management from the Bren School of Environmental Science. That's at UCSB. That's their environmental graduate school. And I went to college in San Luis Obispo. So I love the Central Coast. I'm really excited to be working in Ventura and especially working in sustainability in Ventura because we obviously have the hills, the river, the ocean. It's a really wonderful place to kind of focus on our natural environment. And generally, I think that folks are really excited to talk and hear about this topic, so I'm grateful for that. So the CARP, for those that aren't aware, the CARP is an aspect of the general plan, and the general plan, I'm sure you've heard if you're here, it's a very large planning document that the city is required to update every 15 to 20 years, and as time goes on, a lot of different additions have been made to that requirement. So the CARP, or the CAP, different people have different acronyms, but ours is a CARP. This is a required aspect to a general plan update, and it addresses a bunch of stuff. So it builds on the work of the general plan. It ties in a bunch of the key policies and goals from the general plan. It builds on a past policy document, the Energy Action Plan, that was developed and then kind of just got folded into the CARP because those timelines overlapped. It also builds on the Active Transportation Plan, which is currently being implemented in a couple different ways, and very key connection here. It builds also on the hazard mitigation plans, the fire maps, definitely something that comes up a lot within the CARP. It's a short range planning document as opposed to the general plan, which is about 10 to 15 to 20 year planning document. So the CARP is really meant to address short-term goals, and that is about 5 to 10 years out. Our city council endorsed the climate action plan. So technically the CARP is an appendix to the general plan. So it will be officially adopted with the general plan later this year when that comes to city council. But because the CARP was finished early and we wanted to get started on it, we brought it to city council earlier this year so they could endorse it. And that way we could get started and be really ready to hit the ground running once it's fully adopted with the general plan. So it's very exciting, and that's why we're here. So back in 2020, when this whole process got started, there was a lot of public engagement in developing the CARP. There were about 11 total community engagement opportunities in person. Just under or over 2,000 people engaged through that process. And I know there were at least like 700 comments submitted on the CARP, and those were all addressed line by line by the team working on the CARP at that time. So there's been a lot of public engagement, and generally it's really awesome to hear what people have to say about the CARP. And mostly what we hear is that we're not doing enough, which is what you want to hear when you're working in the environment. You want people to be pushing you forwards and reaching for the stars. So that was the engagement that happened prior to the CARP's endorsement. But now that it's been endorsed, I'm definitely looking to transition towards kind of a ongoing engagement style. So there's ongoing engagement with city staff, just general engagement with the public. So keep your eye out for opportunities moving forward to get engaged. This is the outline of the CARP. It's a very large document. It's about 380 pages. And a lot of those are transcripts or screenshots or just kind of descriptions of the public engagement. So it has a record of all the comments that were submitted and record of kind of the in-person events and how those went and any survey records, stuff like that. It's all folded in there. So it's very lengthy, but there's an introduction. There's a piece that kind of breaks down Ventura's contribution to climate change in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. And then there's a piece about our changing climate, so how climate change is currently affecting Ventura. And then chapter 4 addresses that in adaptation strategies. After that, it goes over our greenhouse gas reduction program, and how we're going to reduce emissions from being emitted in the first place. And then chapter 6 of the plan, so if you skip there, you'd look at the plan's implementation and how that's going to look from the city's perspective. But I'm going to go over a couple of these chapters, not all of them, but I'll start with the contribution to climate change. So we're going to look at a emissions breakdown, and then we'll talk about the difference in chapters 4 and 5, adaptation versus greenhouse gas reduction. And then I'll end with implementation and give you guys a little update for how that's going. So this is one of the main graphs in the CARP. This is a general emissions contribution. So this is the city of Ventura, so all emissions that are within the city boundaries. And this is not just city operations. So this is everybody's, all of yours, all of your neighbors. This is everybody's emissions and kind of how they add up. So obviously transportation is the biggest area where emissions are coming from. And just generally to give you guys perspective, this graph and the proportions that are assigned to each category very much are reflective of the county as a whole. We do a lot of climate planning with the county and the neighboring agencies hand in hand, because it takes the county takes a village in that kind of way. And so this breakdown lines up very well with them, and it means that when we're talking about how to reduce emissions on the whole, we're very much aligned in what we're trying to target. So transportation is the big one. That's because a lot of people drive through Ventura. There's a lot of issues there, obviously, but that's pretty standard to have the biggest pie slice. Anything that you see related to electricity is because of the electricity mix that customer is subscribed to. So if you're not on the Clean Power Alliance program, then you may have an electricity mix that is resulting in emissions being released. And anything that you see that says residential natural gas, so over here 14%, that's if you have a gas appliance instead of an electric one. So a gas water heater, gas fireplace, anything like that is where that's coming from. And I have this little note down here. So what can you do to change your contribution? Because this is the full cities. I don't have control over a lot of people's individual emissions. So a big piece of implementing the CARP is reminding folks that there's a lot to be done within your own life. And I think it's a good time to start thinking about what piece of this you could, cut out or transition to a more environmentally friendly option for yourself and your lifestyle. Okay, I'm going to move on. But if you guys have questions or want to come back to any slides at the end, I welcome that. Barbara, I see you just put your hand up.
Right, I do have a question.
Yeah,
I'm on solar, so
that's great.
this might be a really dumb question, but for those people that are not on solar, how do they find out if they're contributing to climate change? Like, how do they
That's
know?
a great question. So interesting, actually. In some of my graduate school classes, you wouldn't think that this is what we learned, but we would sit down and we would look at an electricity bill and learn how to read your bill because it's truly a skill. There's so many different pieces and charges and layers to finding out where your electricity is coming from. So I would recommend checking to see if they're on the Clean Power Alliance. If they're enrolled. I believe Ventura is an opt-in or an opt-out area right now, so you would be defaulted to a Clean Power Alliance rate. And then you would have to specifically say, no, I want to opt out and I'll be on SCE. So I would check there. I think that just getting in contact with Clean Power is a great way to do it. They've got really good customer service and I've had good experience with coordinating with them. So I would check there. You would check your bill and you can see like which power mix you're subscribed to, and then you can probably find out online. It is kind of hard, and that is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, it's very buried. It's a little bit technical, but I would say just taking a hard look at your bill and Googling and trying to figure out like what is tied to what would help. But
Yeah,
yeah,
those bills are very hard to read. Fortunately, everybody in Ventura was opted into the 100% renewable energy option from Clean Power Alliance. So a customer would have to opt out to be on anything other than 100% renewable. So if they're wondering what rate they're on, they're probably on 100% renewable already because they would know if they opted out.
So 11% plus 4%. I mean, what is non-residential electricity? Is that farms, ag? What is that?
Anything non-residential, so commercial, so businesses, whether that's, manufacturing, warehousing, restaurants, retail, that's a all-encompassing non-residential energy. And what we found, this is, I guess, we as the city cannot see what individual ratepayers, like what rate they are on. We're not allowed to know that information, but we can see roughly industry by industry how the trends go. And generally, it's the really high energy intensive industries that see that their bill could go down drastically by choosing the absolute cheapest option out there. They're the ones that tend to opt out.
And what would an example of, is it like, we don't have much manufacturing in Ventura. What would be something that eats up a lot of electricity?
Anything with, big machinery, anything that's running 24 hours a day. The possibilities are endless, but anything from a brewery to small manufacturing to a warehouse with refrigeration, 24-hour HVAC, anything like that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else have any questions on this slide before we move on? Also, quick intro. That's Lars. He's my supervisor, and he'll help answer a lot of these questions. Let's see here.
I also live in your district, so hello neighbors.
Okay, sweet. So in the CARP, in order to address all of those different emitting sectors, There's many different strategies. There's about 90 something strategies overall, and they're all grouped into these larger sectors. And I'm going to try not be redundant, but so these sectors are all addressing adaptation. And so adaptation is the part of the plan where we're not necessarily focused on reducing emissions, but we're focused on changing our local environment and our behavior so that we're well adapted to potential climate change impacts. So this includes wildfire mitigation, extreme heat, emergency response, drought, sea level rise. This is the side of the plan where we're really looking at preparing for these impacts, because no matter how many greenhouse gas reductions we put in place, we're experiencing these impacts already. So we want to be prepared. Eventually, information relating to the adaptation side of things will have its own designated space on our website, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, but that's the adaptation side of things. And then the other half of the plan is greenhouse gas reduction. So these are specifically the sectors that we've got strategies under that address those big pie slices that you saw earlier. So clean energy in buildings, that's addressing all buildings, transportation, obviously, built environments, that's new and existing buildings. How do we help reduce emissions from there? And then on both sides of things, adaptation and mitigation, we've got city leadership and kind of strategies related to that as well. So out of the 90 strategies that fall into all these buckets, 12 were selected as priority action plans. So we've got strategies. These set out kind of an intention, a goal, but 12 were selected as priorities in order to get us to our greenhouse gas reduction goals. And these 12 were expanded, and now they include short-term actions, medium-term actions, and long-term actions from 1 to 10 years out. They include responsible parties for each action included. They have a really robust list of potential community partners, cost estimates, equity considerations. They're really fleshed out. So this priority action plan exists in entirety as Appendix G in the CARP. So if you wanted to skip reading all 385 pages, you could skip right to Appendix G, and it'll be basically a handbook for CARP implementation and what the next 10 years will look like as far as implementation of these priority action plans. So this was the latest update to the CARP that City Council requested, and as these were completed, that's when we got the endorsement. So the 12 strategies are going to be reported on quite transparently because we have them so built out, and because they're really what we'll focus on for implementation. But the rest of the strategies will still be addressed. These 12 are just selected because they're important. So here's an example. One of the ones selected is WM 2.7. That's just kind of the naming convention used in the CARP. But the goal of this priority action plan is to reduce wildfire risk in the wildland-urban interface, so the WUI. This is a blurry screenshot from the plan, but this is an example of the list of short-term actions, 1 to 3 years out. We've got a list of actions. We've got a responsible party for each action. And some of these things capture ongoing activities. You know, we're not doing a lot of these programs. So we do have stuff that address, or we have existing programs that address certain aspects of the CARP already, but we're looking to expand and promote them. So priority action plans were selected because they are important for reaching our greenhouse gas reduction goals. They're important to the community. We heard that through community input, or because they're really important just for the successful implementation of the rest of the plan. So this specific priority action plan ties to at least 2 other strategies in the CARP. So a lot of these priority action plans really set us up well for further implementation and additional programs. Let's see here. And so what's next? We have our 12 plans. We've got our implementation roadmap. We've got a really robust community behind us for implementing this. So what's going to happen next on the city side of things is we have a dashboard that's in development. It's going to track implementation for all the priority action plans. So there'll be a status update and other kind of tools and tracking doodads on that site. It should go live later this summer. Our IT team is working on it right now. But we'll use the dashboard also to report out to City Council when the plan was endorsed. And inside the plan, there's 2 city council updates per year that will happen on the CARP. And that's also especially important because the CARP is one of city council's strategic priorities. So we'll be reporting to city council, but the dashboard will be just kind of a always up reference for implementation tracking. Part of the dashboard will be a resilience hub. So this is where all sorts of resiliency information will be hosted. So those wildfire hazard maps, other kind of resources that go into how to be prepared for different climate hazards, that'll all live on the dashboard as well. And we'll still be doing community engagement all the time, always. This is going to happen at city events. I love when people see our tent at an event and come up and ask me questions about the CARP. It's really fun to talk about with you guys. So that's really fun. I'm very curious to hear what other forms of engagement you guys would appreciate as community members. But the other big part of this and another big part of community engagement is imparting on y'all that the success of the CARP and the successful implementation of our greenhouse gas reduction measures largely comes from behavior change. So the city inside the CARP, you'll see a lot of, explore this policy, set up this program, and we can do that, until the horse, forever, but it really depends on folks' engagement and participation and behavior change towards those programs that will get us to where we need to be. So here's my little plug for how you can get involved. So as a resident, you can help us reach our CARP goals by contributing and by partaking in the programs that are set up in the CARP. You can also help talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, and help kind of just lower the barrier that folks have towards certain behavior changes, like electrifying their house or your transportation or something like that. So there's a lot of great ways to help kind of encourage that transition, but here's some ideas. So continue to advocate. I see some Ventura Climate Coalition folks in the room. Love to see you here. So continue to advocate, explore your local environmentalist groups. There's quite a few in Ventura for all of your different special interests. So I highly encourage you to get involved. You can volunteer for your local organizations. It's very important to do that now more than ever. And I mentioned that for each priority action plan, there's a large list of potential community partners. If you are a member of one of these groups and you see your group listed as a potential implementation partner, you should reach out. We would love to work with you. It takes a long time for us to kind of get things going sometimes. So if you read the CARP, you see that your community group is listed as a potential partner and you have an idea or you have an easy way for us to get that started, reach out and we would love to do that. So that's a great way to get involved. And of course, your individual action. So swapping out your gas powered whatever with an electric version is fantastic. Right now, if you have lawn equipment that's gas powered, you can trade it in using an air pollution control district program. They have rebates for those that qualify, which is really fun. You can compost your food, successfully participating in our SB 1383 composting program, which is just separating your food waste, is a great way to lower emissions. That takes methane emissions out of our landfills, which makes a huge difference. You can electrify your home, your transportation, and you can educate your neighbors on why you would be making those choices or those transformations. So I think that helps a bunch. And let's see here, I think that's my last slide. Yeah, just continue to participate and stay tuned for how our programs begin to roll out. But I'll keep this up in case anyone wants me to go back to a certain slide for a couple minutes.
Kathy has a question.
I may have a messed up voice, but I always have a question. I've been trying to kick this bug for over a week, but anyway, I have asked in the past, I know Lars knows, he caught up with me once at Trader Joe on this one. What is the lowest hanging fruit for residents of Ventura to participate in without a significant financial outlay? And the one I'm thinking of off the top is the food recycling. And how many people in Ventura are starting to participate in that?
Yeah, I would say that's exactly right. That's definitely the lowest hanging fruit. It feels like a whole different project and a whole different thing because it's a new step to everyone's routine, but it makes a very, very large difference. Methane is about 25 times more powerful than carbon dioxide. So if we're concerned about our carbon dioxide emissions, we should be 25 times more concerned about our methane emissions. And largely those come from landfills. And there's so many other benefits to getting food waste out of landfills. That, yeah, it's a very simple, easy way for you to get involved, and it should be no cost burden at all. You can pick up a food pail at our office, 336 San Hone. And if you're confused about how to use it, we've got tons of resources, and EJ Harrison and Sons does as well. So that's a great way to just very low effort integrate a new step into your routine. It doesn't require anything new, no equipment, nothing like that. So I would say that's a low
Are
hanging.
there other things people can do that are just as straightforward and easy without too much of a financial outlay?
I would say the 3 bullet points that Logan has here at the bottom are great ones, and they hit all across the spectrum in you know, what might be the right fit for per person. Swapping out lawn equipment has a way bigger impact than you would think. The particulate matter that gets emitted from gas powered lawn equipment is wild. It's like you run one of those for an hour and you get the same particulates as driving a car for 1,000 miles or so. That's probably not accurate, but it's
Wow.
some crazy stat like that. The second one, composting your food at home, it's so easy, you know, really easy entry to it, and yet we have a very low participation rate with our residents. You know, we feel like we've done our part to get the word out. We give everybody the kitchen top pails, and it's just not catching on. It seems like we're following the same path as recycling, where it took literally decades to get people to start recycling. So that's an easy one. Electrifying your transportation, as you saw from the pie chart that Logan showed earlier, that's about 50% of our emissions. So that's a huge one. Obviously, a bigger barrier. You know, it's when you look at the total cost of ownership for an EV, you'll probably save money in the long run if you're driving enough. But, you know, going out and purchasing a new vehicle is a big lift. Electrifying your home, same thing. If you're trying to go out and swap out all of your existing appliances, that's going to be a lot. But if you have something at the end of its life, look at the lifetime costs and the indoor air quality benefits that go with going electric. That could be a great point to make that change. And then, of course, the last one, you probably know your neighbors really well, and you know what path is right for them. Do they just need the easy thing, or are they a real go-getter and they're going to electrify their life? You know, if you can educate yourself about the various paths that you and your neighbors could take, then you can spread the word about it. So I would start with these 4 bullet points there. And as you look through the CARP, there are other strategies that would fall into one of these categories. Either easy to do, or going to have a big impact, or you're going to have other benefits in your life after doing it, you know, indoor air quality, etc. So yeah, I would start here, and then we can go as deep as you want.
And
See, it seems to me that the food thing is really easy to do, but basically we have food scraps for 2 people, but we do drink a lot of coffee, which means a lot of coffee grounds. So that little bucket works for a family of 2 people. If you have kids, I think the little bucket is kind of too small. And I don't know if the city is considering offering something larger for people who would participate if they felt that they could make it work for them.
We have passed out those kitchen top pails to almost everybody in town. And once we finish that, if we have extras, just come by and grab another one. But also, you can put multiple bags out. You can go halfway through the week, put a bag in your yard waste bin, and then fill up another bag for the second half of the week.
Okay, that's a good suggestion.
Do we
Yeah,
have
also I've had some folks reach out and say, I don't like this bucket. It doesn't fit in my sink. I like this other bucket. can I use it? I say, yes. Yeah. We pass out the pails to kind of make it easy, and they've got instructions on them. They're labeled. It helps people kind of transition to have a dedicated pail. But what we're outlining is kind of just the bare minimum rules and requirements. You can get very creative when it comes to taking care of your food waste. A lot of folks that are like low generators of food waste, they'll say like, oh, I barely make any, and that way by the end of the week it's very stinky. I'm like, okay, put it in your freezer. If you got room in your freezer, you can freeze your food waste. It doesn't smell at all. It doesn't get, ooey and icky, and then you throw it in the trash or the yard waste before it gets gross. So there's a lot of ways to get creative within the program to make it fit for that family or residence.
Okay,
So I'll
great.
just
Thanks,
throw
you
out
guys.
we're a family of 5, and we have a big tortoise who eats up a lot of our veggie waste. But
Right.
for the things that he can't eat, we use that bucket. We take it out about every other day. It's not such a big deal. And if I notice if we let it sit more than about 2 days, it starts to smell. So yeah, every other day we tie it up, throw it out.
No. Oh, Wayne has a question, Wayne.
I actually had a comment. Thanks, Logan, and thanks, Lars, for showing up tonight. About transportation, e-bikes are a great way also to, reduce your carbon output in biking and walking, and also just planning your trips. I often just delay a trip until I gather enough stores that I and just make one trip and hit multiple stores at the same time, by just trying to reduce the number of miles I drive. So that's another tip, since transportation is the biggest
Yeah.
generator.
Yeah, I was gonna jump on that as well. Yeah, you don't have to reduce your transportation emissions just by electrifying transportation. You can, simply drive less. There's a lot of great transit options in Ventura, and I mentioned we do some planning with the county, and a lot of that involves VCTC, which does a lot of transit planning, and they've got very big plans, very big picture operational schemes to help Ventura residents get around the whole county without having to drive their own vehicle. So I would check out their programs, their planned programs, and also the City of Ventura's active transportation plan, which has a lot of really cool projects that make it a lot easier to just simply walk around or take a little bike ride instead of having to use your own vehicle. So good point, Wayne. Thank you.
So I had a couple things I wanted to mention, and then Kathleen will do you next. 2 things, PBS. So one of the concerns we all have, as you're retired, is the carbon footprint of travel. So as we all know, that international travel is up like 40%. And those planes are heavy polluters. So PBS just did an episode, a series on sustainable travel. And one of the things it said is, if you want to go to New York, but you also want to go to England, stay a few days in New York, and then go to England, and you will have saved that entire trip from California to New York. So I would love to see the whole thing. I only caught a piece of it. It was very interesting. But the other thing I was thinking with regard to the city, so one of the things that Lars talked about was that getting people to do this, to compost their food. And one of the big impacts I remember was the first time the city had an event where they had the recycling bins out for like the paper plates. And I think it would be helpful to get people in that mode if the city started providing, especially the fair, I know the fair is not a city thing, but if places like the fair and some of these really big events had a separate bin for food waste. There is so much waste at places like the fair and the X Games and all that stuff. I think if we could get people into that habit in a big way, I think we'd have a really big impact. I'm with you. I've been composting for decades, so we don't have any food in our waste, but I do know that for people that aren't used to doing it, it just doesn't feel right? And they have to change their habits. Kathleen?
I just wanted to express my gratitude for those pails. That was the turning point for me. I was a thrice failed composter until those things came along, and I'm a devout user now, and it's made it possible for me. But I wanted to comment on things that we can do. One of my favorite quotes is, "What is the best workout program you can do?" Well, it's the one that you will actually do. If you just pick one thing that will that fits with you and your life and who you are, doesn't have to be activism, doesn't have to be an electric car, just something. Let me give you a fun fact. For some people, you can really reduce your carbon footprint by reducing the amount of meat you eat. If everyone in the US for 1 year gave up meat, that would take care of 4.9% of total US emission reduction goals. Now that's too daunting. I'm not a vegan or a vegetarian even, but I'm going in the direction of less meat. If 1/3 of the US gave up meat 1 day, it would be the equivalent of 340 million passenger vehicle miles of emissions. So to me, that's very encouraging. That's just yet one other small way that we can all act. And of course, there's voting. Don't want to leave that out.
Kathleen, could you, for those of you who don't know you, could you and Wayne introduce yourselves?
Sure. You want me to go first, Wayne? I'm Kathleen Wheeler, and I'm a retired organizational psychologist. I moved here to Ventura on December 3rd, 2017. Does anybody recognize that date? It was the day before the Thomas Fire. And I've become very active in the climate movement, belonging to a number of local climate organizations. And my partner here, Wayne, has taken over the leadership of the Ventura Climate Coalition, which a woman named Jan Dietrich and myself and Todd Collars started in 2021. And it's continuing. And thanks to Wayne for being our new leader.
Well, thanks, Kathleen. You certainly held it together for many years and did lots of good work. So I'm Wayne Morgan. I live in East Ventura, and I retired in 2017 and became involved in, well, I actually moved to Ventura. This is kind of interesting, Kathleen. I moved, or I bought property, my house, on November 17th of 2017. So that was like 2 weeks before the fire. So the house survived though, so I was lucky. I'm in Clear Point area. So after I retired, I got involved with Climate League of Women Voters. I started out, then I got trained with Climate Reality Project, and through that I met Kathleen, Jan Dietrich, and got involved with the local group here, which focuses primarily, well, focuses on the city of Ventura. So we're very focused on trying to, help move things to a more sustainable future right here in the city by taking action. So I'm really big on electrification. I've electrified my home, and I know a number of people in the area that have. And one story I just want to tell is one of our neighbors who got burned out was rebuilding, and he wanted to go all electric, but the contractor talked him into installing gas. So after he got his house built, the only appliance he has running off of gas is a water heater, which is the absolute worst, easiest thing to electrify. And water heaters in our area consume the most residential energy. because they're usually running all the time. You know, we don't have heating and cooling bills because we're in such a mild climate. So it made no sense to do that. He spent $20,000 installing gas. You know, he could have put that towards his solar and battery, which he did install. So, you know, it's not cheap to put gas into new buildings, and I see no reason why. So,
If I could just add to that, a group of us met with Lars and Logan a few weeks ago and really appreciated their openness to talking about what they're doing and to listening to what we're doing. And one tiny outcome of that was the need to reach contractors like Wayne is describing. So we haven't done it yet, but we have a plan to table at Lowe's to try to reach contractors about electric alternatives. And I don't think that idea would have crossed our minds if we hadn't had that meeting. So it was a really good collaboration.
I'll hop in really quick before our time is out and say that if you are considering a retrofit or any sort of construction work in your home, there is a organization called 3Cren. That's an acronym for something.
right, it's Tri-County Renewable Energy Network.
Thank you. There's so many RENs that we work with that I always get confused, but they've got great resources for contractors and programs that help kind of front the cost of electrification, that make it a lot easier to get your contractors on board. And you can also select a contractor who has already completed electrification measures and knows how to do it all. So there's a lot of resources out there, but it's a matter of connecting folks to those resources. So,
and we have a lot of resources also for retrofits. So look us up, Ventura Climate Coalition. Yeah.
So actually, you have a little bit more time because our next speaker, I think, Shannon may not be here tonight because I think it's graduation.
Yeah, she had a conflict, so yeah, she won't be here. I have a thought about the kind of a takeoff on what you were just talking about, dealing with contractors, is local plumbing companies, because they are not inclined to suggest you switch out to anything electric. It's been my experience.
Right.
So,
yeah, and
there's
interesting.
really great local plumbing companies that if you guys approach them, I'm sure they'd be open to the conversation.
We've had a couple of electrification at community events, one in Thousand Oaks and one in Ventura, where we had vendors come and display their wares and talk about their services. And there was a lot of education going on there to the public, to them, to us. It wasn't as well attended as we would have liked, but yeah, there are a lot of contractors who are willing. They just need to be exposed.
Well, I'm thinking if water heaters are such huge offenders, the plumbing companies would be a really good place to start.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, and you know, educating the public too is very important, because you know, a lot of times the contractors are going to try to upsell you, right? But what's out now, there are 120 volt electric water heaters, heat pump water heaters that are very efficient. You can just plug them into the wall. So there's no electrical work required for these if you have if you have an electrical outlet within 6 or 10 feet away. And it's just like replacing a water heater. So there's, so people need to know that.
Wayne, can you put a link for that in the chat? I will say, I know, so Ventura does not have the highest electricity rate in the state of California. I know there's some areas in San Diego that have an extremely high electricity rate. And I actually know some people that are turning off all of their electricity during the day. And they're looking for solar alternatives, just, you know, any kind of alternative to keep the cost of electricity down.
Yeah. Well, don't turn it off during the day because that's the cheapest rate now.
Which you can't see at night.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. I get it. Yeah. You know, I think it would be better to just have people contact us, me. Let me put my email in the chat.
I had another question for you, Logan. So what you've shared is great. What the community can do personally, you know, our families and our households can do to make a difference. I'm kind of interested in what you're excited about with regard to what the city's doing. Like, what is the thing that you went, oh, I'm so glad they did that?
That's a great question. No one's asked that yet. There are quite a few things in the city. I would say I don't know, there's a lot of big goals that the city has. A lot of them are tied to state goals, like the electrification of fleet vehicles that are eligible to be electrified. That kind of stuff is going to be really a long-term project that I think the end goal of will be really fun, very exciting. I would say I'm maybe this is an easy out, but I'm excited just to track the implementation of the CARP, being on the team that has helped get it to this point. I'm just excited to disperse it amongst city staff and see them run with it with their own programs. We've gathered our CARP implementation team for the first time this month in May. And it was really nice to have everyone kind of review what they were assigned in the CARP. And some people were saying, well, wait a second, we actually already do that. I'm like, that's great. Now we can report on it to the public and let you guys know that we're doing great things and that there are programs already helping us address the impacts of climate change out there already. So I think just the implementation itself is exciting to me, but that's because I'm knee deep in it. So, but
What's an
there's a lot of fun
example-
stuff.
What's an example of a city department that either said, hey, we are already doing that, or said, hey, we're going to do that right now?
Yeah, our facilities team is doing stuff all the time. I mean, they keep the roofs on over our offices heads and all of that. So they're doing a lot of maintenance work all the time, but they are currently replacing a bunch of water heaters and fire stations with heat pumps. And they're always exploring and trying to find out if they're able to get an electric vehicle when a vehicle replacement, time comes up. But specifically the heat pumps that are being installed at some of the fire stations right now, I think is really exciting. They're a heavy user because they're always staffed, so it's a great place to make that replacement.
And then Lars talked about, yard equipment. Tell us about that. Like, you've got a huge maintenance team that has a lot of stuff to maintain.
I know.
Yeah, I can speak to that. Not in much depth, but we just held our first green team meeting where we get all the departments from all over the city together. Each one of them is responsible for one or more of these priority strategies that are in the CARP. And our parks team reported that they are looking into replacing their parks lawn equipment with battery powered lawn equipment. So I don't know what the rollout's going to look like. We're going to learn more as we continue meeting with the parks team, but they're looking into it. And I know in the past our parks team looked into it and years ago, and it didn't pencil out. I think costs have gone down, and they're figuring out how to make it work logistically. So I would say that's exciting. And then I just in general, I think that council endorsing the CARP and implementing the CARP be one of their priorities is huge. So our facilities team, like Logan mentioned, is trying hard, but they have limited resources. They're literally choosing between fixing a hole in the roof and replacing a water heater. Like that's not even hyperbole. That's that's what our fleet and facilities manager tells us she's looking at. So, and she said, I have all this stuff on my plate for the CARP. How are you expecting me to do it? Well, council's telling us to do it. So if facilities brings a budget ask to city council and to our finance team and says, hey, you're asking for us to do this in the CARP. Here's what I need to electrify our fleet, or, you know, swap out gas water heaters for heat pumps. This is what it's going to take. And I think council will be supportive. So even just the endorsement and the ultimate adoption is a huge step, because it gives staff the confidence to ask for what they need.
Is there a form for the public to fill out to do the lawn equipment swap, or how do you go about that? What are the steps?
I believe, I don't know if we have it up on our website yet, but it's actually a program through the Ventura County Air Pollution Control District. So the
Yeah, I'll look up a link
APC.
and drop it in the chat.
Nice, thanks, Lars. Yeah, so they host it. It's mostly because it targets airborne pollution. So they've got a certain amount of a grant that is dedicated towards that. So if you wanted to trade in your operational equipment for an electric one, you would get reimbursed for that swap. And it goes up. So if it goes up, it starts at like lawn, just leaf blowers, and it goes all the way up to like ride-on mowers. So there's a lot of different options depending on your needs. But yeah, it's an air pollution control district program that we're promoting, since they've got free money for everyone. So it's a great
Great,
option.
thanks.
Mhm.
All right, if there's no more questions, I want to thank you so much. I personally really loved this presentation. I was a little frustrated at the annual planning meeting because the goals were non-specific. And I know as a manager of an organization that non-specific goals never get met. So it is really nice to hear the specific goals at this point. Thank you both, Logan and Lars, for your contribution to enriching the information of this community with regard to climate change.
May I ask one quick question, Barbara?
Sure.
Lars and Logan, are you planning on talking to the other community councils?
We would
Yes.
love to.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great.
I'll drop my email in the chat along with our general sustainability inbox. You guys are welcome to reach out if you have any questions. And then keep an eye out for eventually later this summer when our dashboard goes live, and you'll be able to view all of what we just said, but on a website.
Great.
That'll be great. Yeah.
All right, well, Logan, can you just talk for a minute, because I want to get a screenshot of you.
Sure thing. Here we go. I'm going to put my email in the chat.
Okay, I got it. That
Okay,
was good. Thank you very much.
Nice. Okay,
All right.
thanks for having us. Really
Yeah,
fun.
thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.
All right, so Ryyn, are you here?
Yes. Hi.
Hey, Ryyn. So our second to the last speaker is not available tonight. Shannon Fredericks is, she works for the school district. It's pretty busy right now
Yeah.
for the school district. So we are going to go forward with what you have to share tonight. So
Sure.
I'm going to introduce our district. What district are you, 3 or 7?
3.
3. Yeah. District 3 City Council Member Ryyn Schumacher.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Barbara. Hi, everybody. Always a pleasure to be here. Love when we get together in person, and I also love that when we get together on Zoom. So thank you for having me. So I want to start off by, I think it's connected to the CARP a little bit, the general plan. I'm not sure if you all have heard that we're nearing the finalization of the general plan. So it's everything from climate to land use to mobility. I mean, there's a lot of things in there that we've been working on. Many of you, I'm sure, have been voicing your opinions on it throughout the whole process in the last 5 years. We were hoping to be done in 2 or 3, but because of COVID, it kind of got extended to 5 years. So we see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel. So there is still time for you to give your feedback until July. So if you would like to read through it, if you want a paper copy, you can go to the city hall and request one. And you can provide your feedback, see if there's anything else that you all want to change in some way, shape, or form to be considered, or you can send it over to me as well, and I would be able to voice that. And then the finalization, we're keeping our fingers crossed in October. So I'm not sure if you all saw the big council meeting yesterday. Last night we had a kind of a marathon. We all went to sleep, or we all went home around 1:30 in the morning. It was a long one. It was a long meeting. It was about tenant protections. There was a big topic about tenant protections. And out of the 8 choices, the city council decided to move forward with 4. So the 4 that we had chosen to approve were anti-harassment for both tenants and property owners. We wanted to expand our legal services for, again, both tenants and property owners. And then while I was in disagreement of this, because I think property owners have the means, the access, and also the affluence to be able to have their own resources, our council decided to move forward with property owner resources as well to help our property owners. And then I was happy to see that my colleagues also voted for displacement and eviction regulations to help some of the tenants, some assistance that we can be able to provide if some of our tenants were to be displaced and evicted. Now, these are only things that we wanted our staff to look into, research, evaluate, and how it's feasible for us to be able to have that in Ventura. The four items that they did not approve, that we did not approve as council, with myself as a dissenting vote, was the rental registry, the rental stabilization, the security deposit, and also the right of refusal. So it was unfortunate that my colleagues didn't quite see how important the rental registry would be for us to be able to enforce the state laws, because the rental registry is a data base for us to be able to enforce and help out with our tenants and also create that relationship with our property owners. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll also leave some time at the end for questions as well. And so if anybody's interested in learning more about any housing resources, there's going to be an info session on Housing Resources 101 on June 11th. And that's on the city website. So if you want to take a look at that, I can send you more information about that too. So kind of related to what's going on in the state and what's going on in the city, and how I'm sure some of you are pretty upset about Maple Court or some of the developments that are happening, or maybe not upset, but have your opinions about it. We approved our legislative platform, and basically that's just kind of ensuring that whatever we would like to see in the state level, and really make sure that we are relating to the state legislators, that we want more local control. And that is just because oftentimes we don't have the chance as a city to be able to voice what we would like to see here in our city, because there's so many bills that gets passed for the state that is pushed onto us. And there's a compromise and negotiation that needs to happen there. So that legislative platform was approved last night as well. Another big thing that we talked about, as you all know, Water Pure is an enormous project. So that was more and more, I'm beginning to question the amount of money that we are spending with Water Pure, because the costs are ballooning. And I have As far as I was concerned last night, I did vote to table the approval of any of the costs for Water Pure until we see the review of costs or the review of budgets that's connected to Water Pure, because I don't want that passed into us for our rates increasing. Plus, we have to look into other means for us to pay for the project. And that just puts more burden on the whole city. And so until we review those costs, whether it's an audit, a full audit, or just kind of working with staff to understand what that looks like, we are, at least for my sake, I am currently pausing on approving any of the proposals that they present to council. And just, I'm sure you all know that there is a police chief. There's a new police chief. I'm not sure if the commander earlier already talked about it. We have a new police chief that got sworn in, Police Chief David Dickey. He's pretty familiar to all of us. I'm sure you've seen him in the community. He joined me at my last meetup for Step with Your Rep. We did that at Kimball Park. I would love to see many more of you to come join in stepping with me and walking with me while we get our steps in. So he is great. I mean, he's been really open to hearing ideas. He's been really open to meeting with people, to making sure that he tells the community about the philosophy of where his vision is for public safety in our city. And then,
before you go on,
yeah.
Did you just break between, just take a little break and
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, no, it's just
Should we go
because-
back? I can go
no,
back.
yeah, no, I have a question. So Water Pure is huge.
Huge.
Since we first started this, you know, I mean, it was 85 million at one point, and then it was 150 million. And now that residents have the challenge of the added costs of insurance, and just the added cost of rent, the overall added cost of living here, you had mentioned, I'm not approving it. What is the alternative?
So that's a loaded question, Barbara, because the alternative is not to do it. I mean, that's essentially what that's a hard pass, or not hard, like left to our plans. But I think at this point, nobody really knows what we're approving. And no matter how often we ask or how many details we're looking for, even I feel like the water commissioners are pretty confused as well. I mean, I think Bert is here. Bert, I don't know if you have any questions or any comments on that, but essentially that's what we're trying to dig into. What is it that we're approving? Because I don't want to feel like I'm writing a blank check constantly for this project. I feel like it's absolutely ridiculous that this project keeps increasing, especially when we have means to be able to say not to exceed a certain contract. And yet they keep coming back to us and requesting more and more funds from our budget. So that is where I'm kind of like, all right, let's assess. And I'll give you a perfect example, Barbara. There was a project that they wanted us to pass, and it did, with, again, me as a dissenting vote. And if you read my newsletter, I went a little into detail about it. It was a marketing and outreach proposal that I believe was asking for like $800,000 or $900,000 for a marketing proposal. Now, I'm a PIO. I'm a chief of strategy and communications for the public health department in another jurisdiction. And I did something very similar, and it didn't cost me $900,000. And I laugh because I was trying to get my colleagues to understand this is exorbitant. There is no reason for us to be spending $900,000 on a marketing plan. That's crazy to me. And so I think that's where I'm kind of really wanting to say, let's look at this a bit deeper, because I'm losing confidence in how we're doing this and how we're moving this along. And I get it. This is an important project. I went to Washington, D.C. myself. I talked to the Department of Interior. They, for an hour or so, sat with myself, the mayor, and the deputy mayor, the city manager, and the assistant manager, telling us how amazing this project is and how excited that they will be giving us $90 million for this project, and how they use this project as a template for other projects throughout the country. We are the gold standard. That's great. I love that. And I also have a responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to the residents to make sure that every penny that goes into that project is something that we can say, yes, we support that. So
Well,
that's a
and
long answer to your
no,
question.
that's an appropriate answer. And
Yeah.
the other important thing is, I mean, it's been 10 years, and the progress in 10 years, the residents' lives have changed.
Correct.
So it's become much more expensive to be a resident in the city of Ventura. So while we embrace the idea of this great new water, and we know that recycling water is got to be the next stage, because we're just running out of water. Can we afford it? Like, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Kathy had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So somewhere in the water department, there's got to be a spreadsheet that adds up all the costs of these projects. So it baffles me that nobody seems to know where we stand at this point. That makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's what we had said. I think Councilmember Mangone said that specifically, that this should be readily available for us. I had asked for the assessment of those, or the assessment, the updates to the assessment of costs, I believe 3 or 4 meetings ago, and that was a month and a half ago. And the fact that we're waiting for a month and a half for an assessment, and then you come back to the council asking for $15 million for insurance, didn't sit well with me last night. And so I had told the council, and I'm glad that my colleagues also understood the frustration that we were all having in regards to this project, that we cannot move forward as a council until we review the costs. And it's not necessarily just looking at the numbers, right? It's really just comparing, here are the costs, here is the scope of work, does it match?
Yeah.
Is it something that actually makes sense to us, or are we too much at the top tier? Could we find more value here in the middle? That way we can shave off a few $100 million off of this project, and that may be a little easier for our residents to swallow. And again, the ballooning costs cannot just be because of materials increasing. It has to be, there's some errors and mistakes that staff are making that makes it much more expensive, and I'm just not okay with that.
Well, the nickel and diming nature of this, where every month or month and a half, there's another ask, that, I mean, that just makes it crazy without being able to add it all up and see where you stand. And the other question I had that's related to this is, last June, City Council requested an updated rate study, and it was supposed to be available by this June. Do you know where that stands?
I don't know where that stands, but I believe they're going to be coming up with a full update sometime in June or July. They were saying some of the dates last night. So that should be coming to council soon, Kathy.
Okay.
Do you want me to answer that?
Yes,
Ryan?
please. There you
Yeah,
are.
what happened with that is the study started a year ago, and they basically delayed it. And because of all the changeovers and costs and everything else that's been going on, they decided to extend it to the next year. So the rates are coming up in June and July. Pardon me, in July. There's going to be 6 and 7, like what you're currently. The increase was there, but what they're saying, when the rates come up a year from this July, they are going to be extremely high. And basically looking at it, hold on to your seat for this one. I did the calculation on it, and between now and 2031, the rates are going to go up 93%.
Wow.
Okay, so this new rate study should divulge that secret to all of us.
That's correct. And if you want to go to the Water Commission agenda from the last meeting, it's actually in there. And that information is in the agenda if you want to go through and look at it. I've forgotten which agenda item it was. It's one of the first ones. And that was, I believe, the 27th. No, it was 27th. It was last week on Monday. So it'd be a week ago yesterday or 2 days ago.
And I'll find out too, Kathy, when they're going to be presenting that to the council.
So,
Okay, thanks.
sorry, Kathy. So, Ryyn, it's my understanding that a certain percentage of the fees that we've already paid, if we stop the project, will need to be returned to the grantor. Are you familiar with this?
So, I think we've already, well, you know, that there's three portions of this project, right? There's what we have to do because of the consent decree, and then the other two parts, which is taking the water from the estuary, processing it, and so on and so forth. And that $90 million, Bert, do you know if we already received that? I know that it was awarded to us, but I'm not sure if we've actually used it yet.
I believe it's from looking at what I've seen. They have it, but they haven't used it all. That's part of the breakdown from what I've heard. And I
Yeah.
really haven't gotten information on that at all. I'm with you. I'm in the blind on it.
Yeah. I know that when we talked to the Department of Interior, they did say that, you know, because we were worried that with Donald Trump's threats of withholding funds, we were worried that that wasn't going to come to us. And so the Department of Interior guaranteed us that that was part of the budget that they had already allocated. And so that's going to be something that once we start building, I believe it's a reimbursement type of situation where they provide it back to us. But don't quote me on that. I'll look into it.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you for all that, but I do think the water issue is extremely important, especially given the exorbitant rate costs that it's going to cost ratepayers. So
Yeah.
anyway, you can go on.
Thank you for that. I mean, no, I agree. It's not one of those topics that we should just kind of, you know, push to the side and hope that it'll figure itself out. It is absolutely something that we need to delve into, and that's what the council and also, you know, Bird on the Water Commission is really doing. And the more questions that we have, the better answers that we can provide for you. So I appreciate it.
So, just one
and-
more thing. I do want to give a shout out to Jim Ackerman, who is at home recovering from knee surgery. He's also on the Water Commission. He may not want to talk tonight, but he is here as well.
Jim, if you want to say anything additional before I move on. Okay. All right.
Yeah, there I am. I
Yeah,
just got
go for it.
opened my mic. No, actually, I've been on OxyContin for 2 weeks, and I'm not in a good talking mode right now. But I will have stuff to say at future meetings. But I appreciate you being there and sharing what you know about the program.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's my pleasure. All right. So Main Street Moves is moving forward. And we're looking for more people to participate in the visioning session, and that's going to be on May 31st. I can put in the information in the chat, so Kathy, you have it for the notes. And then finally, we need more commissioners, board committee members, and things like that. So if you are interested, please be interested. To join and put your name in. We just really want to have more representatives, at least, you know, selfishly, I would like more representatives from from our district, because we really want to make sure that we have a very diverse group of people on every board and every commission. So please consider putting your name in. The application is due in a couple days. So, you know, please take a look on the city website to see if you are interested in a few of them. Anything from like the mobile home to the arts and culture to there's a lot of them. So
Park and Rec, Park and
thank
Rec.
you, Parks and Rec. Yes. Yes.
Isn't there
Measure
one for,
O,
what was
I
that?
think. Measure O, I believe.
Measure O for sure. And then mobile home parks.
Mm-hmm. Mobile
That's
home,
all.
correct. Yeah.
That's the only ones I can remember.
Yeah. So yeah, I would love for more representatives from District 3. So that way, you know, again, we have diverse voices on each council. And that is pretty much it for me. Does anybody else have any questions on the general plan, tenant protections, legislative platform, any of the developments that came up?
I don't think so. I think you covered everything really well. And I really appreciate your bringing all your knowledge and expertise tonight to everyone. You know, it's nice to see you. We haven't seen you for quite a while.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that wild? I feel like I saw you all in March.
I know. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't hang with you till 1:30 in the morning. I bailed out last night. There was no
Were
way.
you there?
No, I was at home online,
okay.
and I just went, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to bed.
It was a wild, it was a very, see, this is what I love about the council. I mean, we could all have very different, you know, we can have a very deep dive on what's important for the city. So I'm glad that people came prepared, and we, you know, again, we tried compromising, and I think 4 out of the 8 tenant protections, it's a good start.
I did mention this earlier, but I do want to thank the city council members who supported the $250,000 for trees in Ventura. I think that's part of CARP, but very, very good news. So did you support that?
Of course I did.
We didn't see the breakdown, but I think you guys just approved the whole thing. So
yeah,
so thank you.
I was one of those people that voiced out to put it on there. So
okay,
those
appreciate
things
that very much.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And I think there was also agreement at council to submit a letter to Steve Bennett and Monique Limon regarding the fire maps issues with trees and trees in the community, our urban forest, and some of the issues Eric Berg brought up at council.
I did talk about that briefly, Kathy, at the beginning.
Yeah, I don't think Ryyn was here yet.
No, that's not.
Yeah, no, I mean, Eric made some really good points last night, and I think the council did agree to send a letter to our legislators, at least expressing our concerns.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, I will say, as the wife of a firefighter, they like dirt. Like, dirt is safe. So, you know, they're gonna, because their job is to keep our city safe, they're gonna err on the side of, you know, over protection. But, you know, we do need those trees to keep the air cool, to slow down. I mean, these are wind velocity driven fires. We need the eucalyptus groves intact, because they're what our forebears planted to keep the wind velocity down. And there's a story online that I think it was in the 1700s or the 1800s. The wind were so fierce, the wind and the heat was so fierce, it actually killed cattle in the fields.
Oh my God.
I read that in 2017 because I was shocked at the level of just the speed of, I think it got up to 50 miles per hour that night. That's crazy.
Wow.
But it has happened before, and it's why people put these trees up to protect us. But yeah, it actually killed cattle in the field. Pretty rough. Not the fire, just the heat and the wind. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, anyway, thank you so much. I don't have any other questions. Does anyone else have questions? I just want to do a quick shout out to Nadine. So nice to see you here tonight. Nadine does a great job of covering a lot of the important things to our community and our residents in her show, Ventura Vibes. So thank you, Nadine, for that. And I think that's it. So thank you all for showing up. Kathleen, if you're still here, can I talk to you after the meeting? Oops, looks like she's gone. Okay, well, Maybe Kathy, you could give me Kathleen's contact information.
Oh, I will.
All right, well, thank you so much, all of you, and we'll see you in next month.